Okay, good morning, everyone. We will go ahead and get started. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. I know that we'll have probably more than a few joining late due to the Crisis Academy that is going on right now. But just a reminder, we are recording these, and we'll place this on our website with the rest of our community planning resources. So hopefully, if they aren't able to join us later, we can at least watch the recording.
I don't know.
So we will go ahead and get started this morning. For those of you who I've not met or not had the chance to talk to, my name is Chad Hibbs. I am the lead for strategic and community planning within the Office of Quality Planning Research here at the department. Just a quick reset, review of the format. We're continuing the same format as we have. I'll provide some general updates. Then we'll open up for any questions about those. We'll have some topic-specific information again this morning, and then open it up for general questions at the end. Again, I do not plan on using the full hour as far as presenting material. So I do hope that we have at least 30-35 minutes or so just for questions. At the end of the session, I will leave this line open until noon. For any questions from anybody who doesn't feel comfortable asking in front of the group, we will stay on as long as there are questions, and at least up until noon. So as I attached the agenda to the meeting invitation yesterday, there's a couple of things that we want to talk about this morning on our call. One being reviewing some of the questions that we've been receiving on the crisis survey. And to kind of provide another overview of the county profiles as the boards are starting the process of looking at their assessments and collecting both primary and secondary data. So we'll touch base on that one more time this morning, and we do plan on spending a significant amount of time tomorrow with the learning cohort to review the county profiles in detail. So provide anybody the opportunity to ask any questions today as well. So let's start off with the crisis services resources, the legislative requirements section of the CAP. Just a reminder, the survey is to be completed by October 7th. There are two parts to the submission requirement, the survey itself. We sent the link out to the executive directors a few weeks ago. So they have the direct link to complete the survey proper within SNAP. But also there is a spreadsheet that's required to collect the information for question number 2. As we discussed previously, the way that question is structured we couldn't replicate that in SNAP the way that we wanted to. So we pulled that question out, we put it in the spreadsheet, we provided that to the board executive directors and their contacts if they've identified those within the county itself. So those are the two components, the survey and the question 2 spreadsheet. Now, I also want to go through and talk about some specific questions that we are receiving in terms of the requirements for data on the crisis survey. And I think, Craig Knudsen is joining us as well. So he'll be able to answer some of your questions as well that we've received. These are the kind of the frequently asked questions that we received, and I'll put those up. We're in the process of updating that FAQ document right now, and we'll get that placed on our website and sent out to this group here at the beginning of the month. So lost it. Oh, there it is. So this is going to look a little different from what we provided to you earlier in the month. We're providing some categories around the questions. So we have crisis services, we have a couple of questions about continuum of care, service inventory, the plan, the assessment, and just some general questions. But this morning, we really wanted to focus on the crisis survey questions that we've been receiving. Just talked about the Q2 crisis spreadsheet. You can send the original completed spreadsheet to this email address. We've already received, I think, 4 so far. from counties, so appreciate that. Thank you very much. For question 2 of the crisis survey, are we only identifying the providers that are actually located in our board area? If so, do we need to do the same for the providers that we are collaborating with on the outside of our board area? So question 2 is trying to get a handle on the services that are provided across the continuum in your board area. And then looking at the second part of question 2, for those services that are provided outside of your board area, that you're contracting with a provider to provide on behalf of your board area, that gets collected in column F and column G of the spreadsheet. So I just wanted to make that clarification. It's a few other people that are coming here. Okay, very good. So just want to provide that clarification. So on Q2, for the crisis survey, we want the providers identified that are providing services inside your board area. The second half of the question on column F and column G, for those that you're contracting with, please identify with a yes or no, whether you're doing it financially or whether you have a formal contract for provided services. On question 3, and we received this question maybe 3 times over the last 2 days. So this is just one of the specific questions, but we received some general questions around this area. So for question 3, are you looking for us to include numbers from out-of-county providers, i.e. those providers that we use through regional crisis funding and or other local funds, or just the numbers for providers located in our county? We may have difficulty getting out-of-county figures. Plus, we do not always know when clients go out of county for services. So, as I said, we've talked about this a couple of times, twice, 3 times the last couple of days. So, yes, we are requesting that you include the numbers from out-of-county providers that are providing crisis services to individuals that reside in your board area, whether that be through a direct contract or those receiving regional funding. We had a follow-up question yesterday about disaggregated data between adults and children. Yes, so for those that specifically are receiving regional funding to provide services in your board area for adults and children, we're asking you to collect that data and present that for information to complete your crisis survey. Another one that came up a couple of times is how should indigent funding be categorized for question number 8. The intent of this funding is essentially to supplement services at the regional psychiatric hospitals due to COVID access restrictions. Because of that, the department is limited to using the funds for services of populations found at the hospitals, primary mental health hospitalizations, and adults 18 and over. It is not intended to fund diversion from patients from that level of care that the hospitals offer. Instead, it should be funding the same service, just somewhere other than the hospitals. So based on this information, unless you can detail or confirm that an identified crisis service was provided to an individual with an acute hospitalization need, that these dollars cannot be applied to those services and should not be included in your funding questions. So we wanted to clarify that as well. So that came up a couple of different times. So unless you can confirm that those services were provided for someone who met acute hospitalization needs somewhere other than the regional hospitals, that indigent funding should not be included in the funds that are providing crisis services in your report. For question number 8, do we include the funding of services to providers outside of our board area? No, those only include services that are available inside your board area. You can include how you are also funding services outside your board area for question number 9. 8 is inside, 9 is included in all. And our board area does not have a crisis planning committee or task force. Is that a requirement for us to have to complete for our CAP? No, that is not a requirement for your CAP to be approved. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to go through some of the questions that we're receiving on crisis services. Really two different ones that we're receiving the most, those being on question number 3 about out-of-county providers and those receiving regional funding, and question about where and how to include those providing services on behalf of the board outside of the board area and those providing services inside of the board area. Again, we'll continue to update these. We updated another question as early as this morning. So we will get these uploaded to our website next week. We hope to update these monthly, but we will continue to use these calls for clarification. I know especially on the crisis services side, knowing that the due date is coming up very soon for those. So we'll keep everyone updated on that. So any other questions specific to the crisis survey? Craig, do you have any additional input that you want to provide?
Not at this point. If anybody has any questions, we're more than happy to help.
Any questions at this point on anything with the survey that anyone wants to answer right now or wants to ask right now? Again, we'll leave this line open until noon. So if something pops into your head after we get done with the presentation, please stick around and we'll get those questions answered for you.
Right.
Hi, this is Dan Rolls from the Lake County Adams Board. How are you doing today?
Good, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I know that I've gotten a couple of responses. We have reached out with a few questions, and those answers should be forthcoming. But
yes,
just one of our concerns I just wanted to see is, you know, as we're approaching the deadline, you know, it's just about 8 days away. Is, you know, if we continue to have questions and we're approaching that deadline, is there any type of extension, or if, you know, for whatever reason it's going to you know, take a little bit more time to access some of that data in order to answer some of those questions, would we be able to reach out for, you know, an extension, whether that be a few days or a week? I just wanted to ask that now, rather than, you know, be in any type of panic mode, you know, the day before. I don't anticipate that being the case, but I just wanted to inquire.
Yeah, we'll address that on a case-by-case basis, and we can have that conversation with you, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions for right now? See anything in the chat? All right, so we will move on. So if you have questions after the fact, please stick around and we'll get those answered for you. Just a reminder for those of you who are participating in the training cohort for the CAP, our second meeting is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So we look forward to having that conversation with those of you who are participating. The proposed office hours for October are October 6th. Yes, that is a Thursday at 11 o'clock. Again, I'm working to confirm that we can get Jamie Carmichael from the Ohio Department of Health to present on the Health Improvement Zone work that ODH is doing and the dashboards that they've made publicly available around that work. So we're hoping to secure her for office hours on October 6th. We are diverting from our usual Wednesday meetings due to the fact that she has a a standing meeting every Wednesday at this time. So we're hoping to be able to have that conversation with her on Thursday, October 6th. And once I get that confirmation, I will send out the meeting invites to everyone for that. And then for October 19th, we are moving to bi-monthly for October. So the second of our October meetings will be scheduled for October 19th. That'll be moved back to the Wednesday at 11 o'clock at our normal time. And again, we will be recording those if you don't have the opportunity to participate, and we'll get those placed on our website for you. But the meeting invites will be forthcoming, so please put some calendar holds for these 2 dates. And once I get the details confirmed, I will send that out to you. For the rest of the presentation time this morning, we wanted to retouch on the county profiles that we created to aid in the assessment process for the boards as they're going through collecting primary data and any additional secondary data that they felt that you feel would be needed for you to complete your plan. Just to recap, again, the county profiles that we created for each of the 88 counties contain a combination of publicly available data and Medicaid claims data, specifically around Medicaid utilization data. We have some demographic data from the NCHS and the census tract data from the 2020 census. We have data that was included in Governor DeWine's Broadband Ohio initiative. We include that as well. We have some primary diagnosis data that we were able to collect and share, and ODH provided us with some BRFSS data that we included in the profiles as well. The second half of the county profiles included regional data from NISDA from both 2016 and 2018. And I'll point out where there are some differences between 2016 and 2018 here in just a few minutes. I'll bring up the county profiles that we can look at. And then we also, at the end of the document, provided some links to some other data sources as well, included in that health opportunity zone information. So hopefully when we get the information from ODH, we can add that or at least send that link out as well. I know that Jamie really wants to spend some time walking through those dashboards. So she'll provide you with access information on how to get that. So we left the placeholder in there. So we'll just go through and I'll share the county profiles. And I do know that there has been some questions floating around. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them today as far as the overview. For the newer cohort, we'll be spending some time on this tomorrow to make sure that everyone understands and then has any opportunity to ask questions, but we want to provide the opportunity here as well. So we said that there's a combination of the NCHS Bridge Race Population Data for 2022 and also the Community Environment and Economic Indicators Survey included in the 2020 census. So we have total population, gender breakdown, age, race, and then we included data on poverty, median income, unemployment rates, and education attainment. We have those listed for the statewide data and then also county data, just strictly for comparison's sake. And then we have the access to broadband data from Broadband Ohio, and we included specifically for each county based on the work that Governor DeWine's office put together for this. We included some primary diagnosis data for publicly funded providers from state fiscal year 2020. There are the categories and then the specific primary diagnosis from both mental health and SUD. Some missing information for each county and then all other diagnoses. We took it a step further based on a request previously a few weeks ago to break out the youth population 0 to 17. So we provided that information, I think, right before this call last week. So we provided that information as well for each of the 88 counties. I was remiss that there was 87 counties. We unfortunately left Perry off. We have made sure that the Muskingum Board had that information as well. So my apologies to Perry County for excluding them inadvertently from the table that we provided. Mental health utilization, Medicaid data from state fiscal year 2020. Here are the categories that we provided. One clarification that we wanted to make, there were a few questions that came in, that these were the number of claims in each of these areas, each of these service areas. So these aren't people, these aren't instances, these were claims made to Medicaid for these service categories. This is the BRFSS data from 2016 to 2022, based on what ODH provided to us for these county profiles. And then we go into the NISDA data. These are the regional data points that NISDA provided to us. There are some calculations on the county data to identify the comparison data. So the data here is the data that's provided in NISDA. The color categories are based on one standard deviation from the state data indicator. So that was to help us aid in categorizing how counties compared. Green means you're better than the state average. Yellow means that you're pretty even. As you see here for this example, heroin use in the past year was 0.43% for this county, or excuse me, for the state. For this county is 0.37%. One standard deviation either way is what we used for comparison's sake. So even though these are not identical, which means yellow means that the county indicator is identical to the state indicator, again, within a range of one standard deviation. This is just for classification purposes for comparison's sake. We did that for the fact that say, okay, so what if the county data was 0.42? Yeah, technically it's better, but not appreciably better. So that's why we went to the one standard deviation on these comparisons. And that was the only modification that we made to any of the data that was provided to us. I did say that there is a difference between 2018 and 2016 in a number of categories. So for the second half, they're indicated here on the years. There are a handful that are the data from 2016 to 2018. The majority are updated from the 2018 to 2020 data run. The reason why we have 2016 included is for these specifically, for the ones that have 2016 included. We're assuming that due to COVID, the data collected, was it enough to include these specific categories in 2018 and 2020? So we reverted back to 2016, 2018 data because we thought it was important to at least have this available to you for your assessment. But we indicated where and when this data was provided to us. There just wasn't enough numbers as far as data collected by NISDA to include these categories. We thought it was important to do it. We just indicated what years that data was collected. And at the end, we have the county health rankings, and ODH will hopefully on October will be providing us with the social determinants of health dashboards that they're presenting. So again, this is just a brief overview. I know there's some questions floating around about this, so we just wanted to present it just for a few minutes this morning and answer any questions that anyone may have on the county profiles. And again, for those of you who are in the learning cohorts, we'll be kind of going through these in a little bit more detail during tomorrow's call. Just to make sure that all of you are comfortable with what you're looking at. But any questions from anybody today? Again, this is meant just to be an aid for the assessment process. Please do what you will with this information. We just felt that to aid in at least the secondary data collection portion of the assessment process, that we could get our hands on some data and kind of compile these profiles for you, just as a courtesy and hopefully as a tool for you to use during your assessment process. We don't mean these county profiles to be the end all be all of your assessment process. We do hope that you again look at primary data collection from your clientele, those family members with those clients that you're serving, particularly on the youth side. What data and information you're getting from your providers, via either survey or other data collection processes. What are you learning from your focus groups, from your stakeholders, from your clients? So again, this is meant to be an aid. This isn't meant to be your assessment. So what are you doing as far as what you have been doing as far as primary data collection? We want you to continue to do. Make sure that all your stakeholders are involved in that data collection process, from providers all the way down to clients, your Family and Children First Councils, your health districts, your providers, any coalitions that you regularly collect data from, your recovery oriented system of care assessment. Please do that as primary data collection as well. And include any other secondary data from other sources, whether it be statewide, regional, or national. We just hope that we are able to provide you with a tool that you can use during your assessment process. But there are important voices that I think that all of you would need to hear from when you continue to go through that assessment process. We do know that a lot of time right now is being spent on crisis survey for obvious reasons, not various reasons, obvious reasons, because a deadline is looming, and we know that some of the assessment really hasn't started in earnest yet. But we will be here to be able to answer any questions that you do have. Again, we do know the focus right now is on crisis and getting this finished, and we understand that completely. So any questions about the county profiles? Okay, that's all of the prepared material that we have for you this morning. Again, my to-do for you is to make sure that we have Jamie Carmichael confirmed for October 6th, and I'll get the October dates out to you hopefully before the end of the week. I reached out again to ODH yesterday for confirmation, and once I do, we will send that information. Any questions on anything?
Real quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
With regard to the learning cohort, how is the invitation to that process? How has that gone out? Can anybody attend?
Yes. So we did it in two different stages. One, we reached out to those executive directors who have been in the position 3 years or less. So they received a direct invitation, and we opened it up to anybody else who wanted the opportunity to attend. I think we actually picked up a couple the day before our first meeting. So we are meeting twice a month. We have them scheduled through the middle of November. And it is just really spending some more significant time going through each aspect of the community assessment and planning process, and being able to kind of provide a little bit more detail about what we're looking for, why we're looking for it, and asking or answering any questions that those who had a little bit of a less experience for community planning and putting these plans together in the past. So it is open to anybody. If you want to touch base after the call, and if you're include, I sat still for too long. Well, lights went out in the office. So sorry about that. So yes, if you do want to participate, it's an open invitation. So please just we can touch base later on today, or you can just say, hey, listen, I'm interested, and I will get you the invitation to the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. sitting in the dark here. Any other additional questions? Okay, if not, if you don't want to ask in front of the entire group, please stick around. I will leave this line open until noon at the very least to answer any questions that you have. If not, we will conclude today's call. I hope everybody has a great day and a great rest of your week. Thank you very much.